Hi everyone, this is Yvonne again, and I'm going to talk to you this week about exploring technology and government. I know for this week's assignment, we were supposed to do a vlog, which is like a quick video where I just kind of talk to you, but I felt that it was better for you to have pictures so you can kind of get a better understanding or kind of reinforce the concept of what it is that I see from the information that we learned this week. So there's been several changes according to the article we read and the video clips and the textbook, just all the information that came in. So since we've had a smartphone and tablet, according to all of the data, we have increased data on habits. We have a government which is now more in touch with society. They have a better analysis of the data that they're receiving in. And for people who are sending in these requests electronically or mobilely or through these apps, you have a decreased response time in terms of getting things accomplished in government. The only thing was there was two other sides that I really thought about that really hit me. So when we tend to think of technology and we look at it from the aspect of how is this more forward thinking and how is this more innovative and how is this more efficient, we tend to forget that that camera that looks in, or that app that's providing a service to us through our phone, is actually looking the other way. So that's why I came up with the tracking me and is it a violation of my privacy? I think especially as I was reading through when it said increased data on habits. So that information is being gathered from our phone. It's that same thing like with the iPhone, how you have it. If, let's say if I went and I was looking for a trip on my iPhone, and then that information stored. So then all of a sudden all of those ads come in and they're tailored to all these places, all these different airlines, these places I can go, or if I was looking at a shirt online, and all of a sudden these ads just keep filtering through my phone because my phone is tracking all of that data. So even though it puts government more in touch with us in society, it actually makes me feel kind of worried that they are tracking that. So yes, they're going to have that data, but they're watching everything that I'm doing. And so in that aspect, I didn't feel too comfortable with this type of technology. So the new technology that's out there, we have the wearables, the GPS, smart homes, Amazon, and streaming. So all of these things are great. But again, there's that other aspect that you don't hear about. The reason why I put all of these pictures were, I'm going to go ahead and start with the smart home, which is great. You have the smart home and everything is like hardwired and it's electronic. And then you have the Amazon Echo where you can ask Alexa to do anything. And movies, we're able to just stream everything on demand. And one of the big things with that is that if we were already a microwave generation and now you're being able to give us things on demand like instantly, we're going to lose an aspect of our character and we're going to build an unrealistic perception about how things occur. Back a few years ago, they used to talk about this with TV, and they would say with TV shows, when you're watching these shows, it's like a 30-minute window, and it would give people a distorted view of reality because they would think that you could solve all of life's problems in the 30 minutes or in the hour of that show. Whereas real life isn't that way. Real life is more complicated. Real life is more messy. Real life can't be solved in a 30-minute show, and it's not always going to have a happy ending. So I think that's one aspect of technology, which is a negative. Another couple things that I noticed or that kind of brought to my attention as I was going through all of the data was that with having the advantage of Amazon, and everything being delivered to the house. I was sharing with a friend last week, I think it was, where I was driving and I went to the store and I'm like, gosh, the store doesn't really have anything anymore. And that's when I realized that, and shopping for me is one of my just kind of pastimes that I like to go and just browse and look and buy stuff and it's kind of like a retail therapy for me. And so when I went in the store and I seen that they didn't have much of a selection, I was kind of like, wow, This is where society is headed. Everybody orders everything online. Everything is so convenient and just delivered right to your doorstep. The other aspect of that is nobody's talking about all of those stores that are going to be closing, because those are going to be people that are going to be out of jobs, and even though the jobs are going to change, you're going to have a lot of people who will say, older people, your people that work at your Targets and your Walmarts, that are not going to have jobs because they were already elderly or after that point in life where they don't have the skill set. They're not going to have the technology or the awareness of the technology. You have people today that they've just made the decision that, you know what? They're not going to jump on board with the technology. They're just going to ride it out until they go home to be with Jesus and continue doing things the way they've always done. And it's sad, but it is a reality that we'll have to deal with. On the other aspect of that okay, so we're going to have people and they're going to have more jobs, and everybody now is going to work for Amazon or delivering these home goods and all this other stuff. So you're going to have more people driving on the road. And what's going to happen with that? You're going to have the increase of pollution. Now we have all this stuff, as if we didn't already have issues with pollution. And we'll just use California as an example alone. How much more is it going to be as a result of all of those people who would normally just go to the store transitioning now to getting all of their stuff delivered online? That's through messenger services. That's through more UPS, mailman. Like, this affects everything on a larger scale. I think sometimes we just don't look at that end. And I think a lot of times we see that those casualties are less than the actual reward, I guess, for lack of a better word, than I guess the positives outweigh the negatives is the way that we tend to view it. But I think when we're talking about society and government and people as a whole, you need to be able to look at the entire picture, the big picture of things. Ultimately, these kind of things are going to have a direct correlation to legislation that's being written. If we have more issues with pollution and unemployment, that's just going to be more of a place for government to get involved. And the question comes back to how much is too much for government to be involved in your every day-to-day life. So the impact of government services. I kind of used some funny little cartoons and videos because according to the information, there were going to be, as they were collaborating and having the people become more of like these watchdogs and these volunteers and these advocates, it kind of bothered me. I know me personally, I have neighbors and I have some of the nosiest neighbors ever. And to give these people that kind of power would just, not that I have anything to hide, it really bothered me, because now you're putting that kind of power in people's hands. And so all of that is subjective. It's subjective to what somebody thinks. If I drive down the street and I see a little boy and he's, scribbling on the ground with chalk or sidewalk chalk in front of his home, I could perceive it as like, oh, being that I have a preschool background, like, oh, cool, he's doing art, it's on his own property. Whereas my neighbor, Sally Mae, over there may look at it and be like, this little boy is vandalizing. So I think a lot of times it does become subjective. So in order for this to work and to be more effective, you're gonna need to have some very, very strong parameters in place. I know as we were reading through the textbook, it mentioned how government wasn't equipped with the staff, and then you're going to need to have people to be able to filter through what's an actual or a valid request and what's not. And I think that's the impact that it'll have as we continue to go in this direction of electronics and media and technology. You're going to find that we're going to run into problems. So we need to have those safeguards in place before we even get to that point. And I think that's where the testing comes in, and that's where we shouldn't have to worry or look over our shoulder, because that's not living in peace. And I don't think ultimately that's how God wants us to live. So on this slide, I put something still missing, but we're off to a great start. I know a lot of times, like I use the picture of the man right here with his head into the computer, because that's what a government worker would ultimately feel, the frustration of that being inundated and overwhelmed. I use the picture of the man shooting the arrow, because out of all those arrows, he still hasn't hit the bullseye. And like Elon Musk, everybody talks about Elon Musk, and he's just this phenomenal innovator, and he's doing all of these things. But if you've ever heard him speak or talk about the stuff that he does and have researched his products, they don't always work. There is a risk that he takes. And in the midst of trying to accomplish these things, he realizes that sometimes he has to come back and then kind of dig in again and try the idea again. So that's the reason why I put the picture of the baby. I think everything that we do ultimately, whether it be in government, whether it be in public administration, whether it be in our workplace, when we're talking about change and making these changes and reform and all of it, it's going to take baby steps. One of the things that I've learned throughout my time with CBU was public administration. I've worked in the nonprofit sector, I've worked in the public sector, I've worked for corporations, and I've worked for government. And the thing that frustrated me with government was that it took such a long time to make change, and I never understood why. And I think as I've gone through this, just these time that I've spent in CBU and working for a government agency, it's because of all the logistics and all the things that come into play. You're working at a higher scale. You're working at a higher level. You're working with a larger group of people. It's not something that, if I want to change something in my house, I'm the authority in my house. If I want to paint my house pink or my bedroom pink, I don't have to ask anybody's permission to paint my bedroom pink, because I'm in charge of that. But when we're talking about government, maybe everybody doesn't want their house pink. And I think that's the part that comes into play that we really need to look at in terms of launching and heading in this direction full force. We have to be able to look at all the factors. So in conclusion, I kind of close out my slide with, there's abundance of peanuts in the peanut factory. When I was younger, my mom and my grandma would have these conversations, and they would be adult conversations about things that little kids probably shouldn't be hearing, whether it be finances, whether it be major family issues or whatever. And I would listen as a little kid. I would eavesdrop on their conversation, and then I would kind of put my 2 cents in, and they would look at me and they would always say, no comments from the peanut factory. And so I thought that was probably the best analogy, that there is an abundance of peanuts in the peanut factory, and the decisions that we make in terms of government and technology, they're going to have outcomes, and they're going to affect not just us. They're going to affect us, and we're so diverse as a nation that it's going to be really hard to be able to get everybody on the same page. But even after we leave, it's going to affect all those little peanuts. And I went ahead and I used these pictures of these like different sizes of peanuts so you could kind of see the age, because the things that we do now are going to have a lasting impact. And so in order to be effective when implementing these types of new ideas and technologies, we're going to need to really look at it. Is it effective? Does it work? I think rather than just launching out and saying, hey, yeah, this is the way that we're going, we need to be able to have data that's substantial, that can demonstrate the desired outcome is being met, but also looking at in the long range, how is this going to keep up? I know with the information that we read this week, it said that the government wasn't able, the government wasn't able to keep turning on with keep up with the technology that's out there. And we do have technology that is speeding by fast. And the example that they gave was the updates. Like, what if you get that update for your, 4.0 and government system is only still working at a 1.0 and it's not compatible, which in the end is going to cost us a lot of money. So unfortunately, the government doesn't have the financial resource that Elon Musk does, because that's our dollars. So I think in terms of kind of something to keep in the back of your mind when you're advocating for this technology, you have to ultimately look at the bottom line. What is this going to cost me? Is it going to make my life easier? Yes. But keep in mind, you're also going to pay for it.